This is a really topic that I'm very, very fond of because I was very inspired by the solitary practitioners, that image, it might be a romantic image of a practitioner in their cave up on the mountainside. But I'm checking to see if my sound levels come up. I hope so. Let me know if it hasn't. User error, as usual. So I was really, even when I knew very little about Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism, I still, this image of this person like Milarepa or Shapkar practicing on the mountain in the cave, that really turned me on. So I set out when I was a working person too, as a nurse. But having a nursing profession allowed me to take off for a period of time, come back, and still have a great habit. Lost track of my thoughts because I was so worked up about the sound being off. Okay, so you guys sound like you have enthusiasm about this topic too, and maybe you've already done some solitary retreat. I hate to say how much I've done. And still this unenlightened person you see before you with the crazy red glasses. We'll get into it as we go along. So I don't know anything about doing Theravadan retreats, but I suspect a lot of the principles are the same. And I think the principles, we have, particular ways of doing things in the Tibetan tradition, but they generally apply to all the Mahayana traditions too. The principles, I think, apply. Of course, you should consult your own people, but I'm coming right out of a Nyingma Vajrayana approach, so I'm going to try to generalize from that to other people who might want to do a retreat. Well, so first of all, in the Bodhisattva way, what's our motivation? All right. We've got to look at, if we're drawn to doing a retreat, why do we want to do a long retreat? Why do we want to sit in that cave? Is it to get away from the people that are bugging us? Is it to some fantasy of entering into samadhi and then suddenly, your ritual implements levitate and next thing you know, you're sitting inside a yak's horn and all that kind of stuff? Those things do happen to the great practitioners, but if you're like me, you're not a great practitioner. This is a point I kind of want to make. If we are connected with Vajrayana, they always say we're a higher level practitioners because we have the merit to even meet with such an incredible speedy path to enlightenment, speedy relative to the 3 incalculable eons it takes in the Mahayana to attain Buddhahood from the very beginning life on. Who knows if that's literal or not, but so we're already higher level practitioners, but within that category, I would put myself at the lower level practitioner. So we have to assess where we're at, and it's great to be optimistic and so forth, but basically we're on the job of trying to move along. The Mahayana way is from the path of most of us are on the path of preparation, right? Accumulating merit, accumulating wisdom, and taming our wild, crazy emotions, right? And there's Vajrayana equivalents to that kind of terminology too. So just saying, because I look at those Facebook Buddhist forums, I don't know if you do or not, but they're all about how can I find the answer to my problems with Buddhism. How literally someone got onto one of those forums this week and said, my husband is abusive. How can I tolerate him better with Buddhism? Everybody had one answer to that. And then the next one is, how do I, and those are all great questions because dealing with our emotions is key, pivotal, and something that if you're going to, if you don't address, you're not really doing anything in your dumb cave or wherever you are. You know what I mean? So let's get down to some substance though, since that's why you came here. So Are you emotionally ready to do a solitary retreat? First of all, have you spent time alone? If you've never spent even a weekend alone, then aim for a weekend retreat. And that's a great, incredible period of time, and it will be incredibly profound. And if you're comfortable with a weekend alone, go to a week. So what I did, and so I'm fond of that way, is I increased from weekend to week to month, 3 weeks to a month, 6 months to a year, like that. And then I did a 3-year traditional group retreat with people. So I recommend that because many things can go awry if you overestimate. Number one, do you have latent mental illness in your family? Got to ask, right? Because especially if you're in that window of late teens, early 20s, and and schizophrenia or bipolar runs in your families. This is American talking here. That's the time it's going to bloom, and this retreat is not a peaceful little walk in the park. It's stressful. So times of stress can trigger hidden problems mentally and so forth, and loneliness and all the feelings that come up in retreats. It's hard emotionally. If you got that can-do bodhisattva spirit, way worth doing. But do you have this major anxiety or depressive disorder? I don't mean your garden variety, but do you get suicidally depressed, under stress? Do you get total panic attacks? It's not quite time. Tame those first with daily practice if you can, and then you can move to solitary times. That's my advice. I told you I have opinions. I've heard the Kala Rinpoche, the previous Kala Rinpoche, who was a great master of retreatants. They would take the hardest people from his monastery, the most difficult nuts to crack, and throw them into 3-year retreat and as a kind of prison. But that's not going to work for us here. I feel pretty firmly about that. So we have to have some level of being able to come back to our own center, work with our emotions internally and stuff. Not perfect. You don't have to be a saint to go into retreat. That's not the point. So just being honest with ourselves is the first step. And then, do you have someone who can help you who's done a retreat of that length? I feel, and here's another opinionated thing, that title doesn't mean as much as experience in terms of getting a retreat guide. That you need someone who's done if you're doing a year retreat, you need somebody who's done a year retreat minimum to guide you. So what are you going to do if you run into trouble and you don't have anybody to call? No Ghostbusters, right? So find somebody like that, and if they're willing to help you, and tell them, you have to arrange exactly when you're going to be in retreat. Are they going to be available? How are you going to contact them? That kind of thing if you have issues come up. And then typically, if you decide, okay, I'm really going to do this thing, it's going to be a week, it's going to be a month, it's going to be a year, I'm ready and I'm dedicated. There's a lot of preparation that is involved. First of all, traditionally in Tibetan society, you save a bunch of animals before you go into retreat. So you generate a bunch of merit and sort of dedicate it to all sentient beings and to your retreat going well, and that creates positive energy before you've even started. And then you have to make decisions. What is your boundary going to be? And boundary includes what place, what area of land, what's your invisible wall or visible wall around your space that you will not go beyond. And then what is your, or you may say, I don't want to have any boundary. Good luck with that. You'll be out of there in a flash, I guarantee it. And then what people are going to come in, and you make a list of the people that you're going to see during that period of time. This is a Tibetan tradition, but I think it's really valuable for anybody's retreat. And include in their emergency personnel. Decide what you're going to do if you have a medical emergency. Are you going to go? Where are you going to go? Write that into your plan so that you don't feel like you've broken everything if you have to go out and deal with that. Generally, we don't make a vow to stay in retreat in, whether we die or not, the way they used to do in Tibet. As a rare practitioner in this country, you are golden and really important. Please don't endanger your health unnecessarily. But also don't make it an opportunity to fantasize a need to go out to every kind of, practitioner there is while you're in retreat, unless you write that into your plan to begin with, and that's part of your intention for the retreat. Then other ways you prepare are making a boundary. Nowadays, you have to make a boundary around internet, and that is going to be the hardest one to keep. If it's sitting around there, it's really tempting. A possibility, if you're doing a longer retreat, if you can stand it, you have to have some kind of telephone in case of emergency, right? So, and you're probably and also to reach your guide if you need to. You may never need to talk to that person, or you may need to, and then you really need to. So, decide how you're going to do that. You can get, so what I'm going to say is you can get like an old people's flip phone. It doesn't have modern internet and modern capabilities on it, and that's a possibility. Or just have a landline and get rid of all the internet. Or you may want to decide you don't want to go that heavy, and you want to check in for 5 minutes once a day or once a week about what's going on in the world, considering all the chaos in the world. There's no shame in that. But it's going to be a hard boundary to keep. I'm just telling you from personal experience. Then you need to gather all your supplies, the practice supplies. If you're doing like in our Tibetan tradition where you have a lot of ritual, you need to gather all that stuff up before you start your retreat. And really think it through, because otherwise then you're going to be frustrated when Home Depot is only like a mile away and you can't get stuff from there. Oh, that raises the question of food and so forth. In urban areas these days, if you're doing a retreat at home, there's all sorts of, as we've learned from the pandemic, we've all learned how to be retreatants to some degree or another. At least the old people and immunocompromised out, right? So that's nice when they can deliver your food to you. And then you need that internet in order to make that happen, right? So there's a danger threshold there to your concentration. But if you're out in a rural area, which is traditional, you'll have to arrange some kind person to come bring your food to you once a week and drop it off. And usually, in a traditional way, you leave like a box at the boundary, and you have to protect that box from animals, so forth. You just have to make a sensible plan for how you're going to have this delivered, and then whether you're going to see that person or not. In the old traditional way, they'd leave in the box and then run, and you'd never see them. But you can do it however you like. Just stick to it, is what I'm saying. Then gather up whatever medicine you anticipate you'll need, including vitamins and so forth, as nutrition is stressed in the traditional Tibetan texts. You start with, and make a plan for how you're going to get exercise. You're going to get all sorts of, in my 6-month retreat, I got a experience where it felt like I had just gotten off a boat. You know that feeling? Whoa. I contacted my guide, kind Anam Tupten did that for me. And he said, you got to get some exercise. And by gosh, I did a few prostrations, cured instantly. So exercise is critical. So prostrations are traditional, or bowing in the Chan tradition are traditional ways of doing that. There are others, a treadmill is good for older people who need to walk. And unless you're going to expand your boundary to include the blocks around your house, then a treadmill is really helpful. I hope tell me if this is like the kind of stuff you're looking for. And so then you need to, if you're a Tibetan tradition or almost any Buddhist tradition, you need to arrange your shrine in a traditional fashion. And And oh, I forgot about one of the decisions. So you have to make a decision about what you're going to do about sexuality. Every human being has sexuality. If you're in the Tibetan tradition, you'll go in your Lama's guidance about what to do about that. Whether you're celibate with yourself and others, whether there's breaks in that to visit a spouse or whatever. Work that all through ahead of time, because it's a big, of course, it's a big thing that comes up for everybody. Now, how do you start a retreat? Well, in the Tibetan tradition, they have a way of doing ceremonies at the sort of boundary of your retreat. You do a ceremony that invokes sort of protectors, like kingly protectors that stand in all four directions and keep trouble out. And it's really great. It's really beautiful. And you can do music and chanting, spend a few hours doing a ceremony to close your boundaries, which is actually called opening your boundaries for some reason in Tibetan. But creating this boundary and saying that's it. And there's a special plaque that goes on your door, and there's a feather, and but in any tradition, at least, even if you're just meditating shamatha, to maybe create a protection dome over yourself, all around the boundary. Visualize, go all mentally all around the boundary, or walk around the boundary, identify and decide. You could, older people, since they have to walk, you could set your boundary at, a mile outside your house so that you can walk. Then you're seeing all kinds of people, which is not traditional, but it's your retreat. So then the preparation, then you've got everything done, your shrine is all set up, and all of this process of getting ready, and maybe you didn't have allow a lot of time off to get ready for this thing. It's pretty tiring, just saying. And then, also in the Tibetan tradition, they have astrological principles, if you believe in that stuff. For example, you start on the waxing moon, interestingly, and you end on a waning moon. And there's auspicious days and inauspicious days. So if you feel confidence in that system, you can consult a Tibetan astrologer for that, or better yet, a big Rinpoche. You could have a Rinpoche do a mo for you if you're into that side of Buddhism. Do a divination and determine whether it was a good idea to do this retreat at all or not. And certainly, of course, talk to your own personal mentor about whether it's a good idea or not. There's two ways of asking that any question to a Lama if you're in the Tibetan system. One is, Rinpoche, I want to do Dada. Is that okay? And you'll get one answer. Or the second way is, Rinpoche, would it be a good idea to do Dada? So, and you decide how open you want to make it. So then you start your retreat, typically done in the afternoon or evening, late afternoon in Tibetan tradition. Whatever works in your world. And, did I say you've set a session schedule, right? You decide how long your sessions are going to be, how many they're going to be in a day. In the Tibetan tradition, it's 2 or 4 sessions, 2 long sessions or 4 shorter sessions. A shorter session is, 2.5, 3 hours. It's a tun, typically, but you may not be up for that. So you can adjust it. Talk with your helper, your spiritual friend who's helping you with this retreat, understand retreat. So you start, and I want to talk about a couple of things that come up in retreat. One is, the first thing I'd notice is everybody gets anxiety about their health. Particularly longer retreat, more so, right? And you have to, it's really hard to get perspective on that, or anything that comes up in your mind. You have to look back at your mind and saying, wait a minute, is this my mind? Would I be concerned about this if I was on the outside of retreat, working a job and running around? Or is this some form of anxiety coming up. Anxiety is a big thing in retreat. Because maybe you've been distracting yourself from anxiety and focusing your anxiety on other things in your working life, and then when you get into retreat, you just realize you have anxiety. Hopefully, you realize you have anxiety. Otherwise, you think about it, you have insurmountable problems. If you don't recognize that's anxiety, you see the demon externally. So I want to give an example of just general anxiety, not medical anxiety. I'd done 3 retreat, and then I did another year retreat about a year after that. And I decided I wanted to build, just for fun, I had a bunch of leftover construction supplies, build a little platform to meditate in my backyard. No big deal, right? But within 2 months, I generated all this anxiety. What if I don't get the part? I don't have the right parts from Home Depot. Oh my God, I won't be able to make the deck. And then suddenly, in a breakthrough moment, I saw my anxiety. I saw that all these years I've been playing out this baloney in my mind over stupid, made-up stuff. It didn't matter whether I had a platform in my backyard. It was just a fun thing to do, and became a torment. So this is the kind of thing, you think your retreat's about, maybe you think it's about having cities from your practice or whatever your fantasy is about it. But the reality is that moment to my mind, is saying, oh, that's my anxiety. It's not the deck's anxiety. And that's what solitary retreat is good at. The warnings about solitary retreat in the literature of the great yogis is that you become arrogant in retreat. And a certain personality type will, everything seems like you can become really puffed up or even manic in retreat if you have that tendency. So that's the Tibetan fear. But, Americans, I don't know if you guys are American, I know Rob is, tend to go towards the self-doubt side. So whatever you have inside you will come up, and it's only yours to deal with. You can't, in a group retreat, you can blame, if you're in the blaming game, you can blame all the annoying people around you for your problems. But in solitary retreat, there isn't anybody there to point the finger at. So it's great. This is hard work. This isn't like a walk in the park. But I'm so grateful I had that moment of recognizing my anxiety. Now I can recognize it when I feel anxiety coming up in my body and go, oh, Yudron, there you go again. And it's changed my life. So during the retreat also, all kinds of things will happen. Trees will fall, and that's not uncommon. And rainbows will arise, and birds will sing, and toast will be burnt. And the idea is to view it all as a meditation experience. Bring it all into your experience, not say, oh, well, this happened, now this is really true. Because everything is illusory, right? Everything is empty. So since your retreat is about viewing everything that way, that includes unscheduled things that happen. And so you have to work with your mind that way. This is a meditation experience. This is my experience that this is happening. It's not denialism that there's nothingness out there. That's where it's helpful to have a background in all this Abhidharma and Madhyamaka and all those things that those eggheads learn. Because it teaches about that. What is phenomena? What are phenomena really? Tell me next week, come back and tell me what they really are. All right. So I would say 2 more things about in the retreat, and that is you have to have a sense of humor. Have a sense of humor about your mind and anything that happens. Don't get superstitious about little, a picture of your llama falls off the wall and breaks, you know, you think, oh my God, this is horrible. It must be a sign. After your retreat is over, you can consult with some Rinpoche about things that happen and interpret them. But during it, just laugh. Don't get so, you know, like wrapped up in what are negative thoughts. Have a sense of humor. And my friend Joshua taught me that you need to talk to yourself. So you're spending a lot of time alone. You're not crazy if you say positive self-talk. And notice if you're experiencing negative self-talk, change that stuff around. You don't need that. Say, Yudron, you can do this. You know, it's whatever hour in the morning you told yourself you were going to get up. Say, you know, play around. I play around myself and say, loving, you know, Yudron, Schmudron, it's okay. You can get up even though you had insomnia last night. It's all right. Get on up. We can do this. You can do this. Right? So it sounds silly, but you're the only company you have in there. And, so then you've completed your retreat. And it's good to, you need to have a formal conclusion to it. In Tibetan tradition, for example, those of you familiar with soaks, we do 2 soaks, one before dawn to close, to end the retreat, and then one in the morning as the sun's coming up to celebrate that you ended the retreat. The full length thing. So that's a lot of practice. And then you go and you can dissolve your boundary in your imagination or with a traditional ritual, but don't. And then you walk outside your door. In the Tibetan tradition, it's very beautiful. You walk up a few steps or a hill and you look at the sun and moon in the sky if they're up there. Look up. And then you go back into your retreat hut. And guess what? You don't go anywhere for a few days. Don't race out of your, believe me, I've had to do it and it really backfired. Don't go anywhere for a few days. So you have to build that into your retreat schedule. Then very slowly start going out, going places, calling. You can start calling people. We have that, you know, early on if you feel like it. Or you can just pretend you're still in retreat and just relax, you know, get some rest, clean up, straighten, put everything away. All right, you guys have any questions? You're here. I really appreciate that there's several people here online with me. And you told me that my mic was off. I'm going to edit all that out in the after process. Do you have any questions for somebody who's done long retreat? It's kind of frowned upon to say that you've done a lot of retreat because it's a pride thing. It's viewed as a pride thing in the Tibetan system. But so I argue with myself about doing this topic because I kind of have to cop to the fact that I have. But I thought it might be helpful or interesting. And there aren't that many people, it's because of that, who talk about it. So here I am if you want to ask me anything. And if you don't, that's okay too. I'm doing a YouTube, no, blank time on YouTube. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you for joining me today. And if you're watching afterwards, I really appreciate you tuning in and watching all the way to this point. That's amazing. Please subscribe and ring the notification bell. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Oh, where's that turn off switch?